What is going on, everybody? It couldn't be for nothing. Here we are talking about the finale for HBO's The Last of Us. We've gotten through the entire season here, so we're going to chat in detail on that. We'll get to spoilers after a quick spoiler-free intro, but hope you'll join us for the chat. I'm Josiah Leroy. With me today, we've got the full cast and crew here at the Geekiverse. Up first, Mr. Baba Yaga is rocking a beautiful built Ryan Miller t-shirt. Look at that.
Howdy.
John, how you doing?
Doing great, man. I've been waiting to talk about this. I've been itching to talk about this.
Yeah, lots to unpack tonight, that's for sure. Also with us, Mr. John Serrato. JT, how you feeling?
I am feeling great. I am excited to talk it up.
Same. And of course, last but not least, Tim. Coffee Tim, beer Tim, who we got here?
Coffee Tim today. A little sinus stuff going on, so I don't want to risk the beer, it doesn't do well. So, but I'm excited to talk about this. So,
but beer kills the germs, just it's science.
I mean,
Very true.
That is science.
Just saying. But
tough to argue with.
Cool. So, like I mentioned, we're going to have a spoiler-free moment here just for a few minutes before we take the deep dive on the episode. So if you have not watched the finale for HBO's The Last of Us, pause this and come back after you have. Of course, we stream all our shows live here at twitch.tv/thegeekiverse. You can watch them back at youtube.com/thegeekiverse or listen on podcast services around the globe. John, we'll dive into your spoiler-free kind of wrap-up on the episode, on the season. Take us through your first thoughts here.
Yeah, so every week, man, we talk about how well they've been doing this, how interesting it's been, seeing them adapt this story, seeing them crush everything we love about The Last of Us. They've just knocked our socks off. We get to the finale, and they just drop the ball. It just wasn't very good. Of course, I'm kidding. It's amazing. It's everything we wanted. It's everything we expected. It is. Maybe I said this last week or something, or maybe I said this in our group chat. This was probably the most faithful adaptation in terms of any story beats. Like this, the end. This was the ending of the game. The last episode was the ending of the game, and they didn't deviate. The only new addition we got was the very opening scene, which wasn't in the game at all. It was a flashback scene. But yeah, they did everything exactly how the game handled it, and it was at that point it was just let's see how Bella and Pedro are going to handle these performances, and let's see how they're going to do these sets. Let's see how they're going to visually present these awesome moments that we're excited for, and they crushed it. They did everything that we're used to them doing. They did it again, and they blew me away. And we're going to get into spoilers obviously soon, but this show is a masterpiece, right? If we're given numbers, this is a 5 out of 5. It's a 10 out of 10. Like this show is perfect in my eyes.
I am, despite all of what we got through these 9 episodes, still a little bit surprised that we got to the end and it was still mostly shot for shot, especially with some of these bigger story beats. Like in the first episode, I remember talking about how I knew what was happening next based on just where they were or where they were walking or where they were about to journey to or what conversations were next. And here we are all the way at the end of the season, and that really didn't change. So that is really, really impressive. JT, your thoughts on the season and on this episode?
I mean, more of a double down what John said, right? I mean, it is a 5 out of 5, sure. But what I found interesting, and I think you guys have talked about it in some of the other episodes as well, is, they adapted the game, obviously. They kept a lot of the same themes, and they changed some things up to make it fit for a narrative of a series. But it felt like its own thing in so many ways, too. Right, like for me, obviously, as someone who played the game so long ago, it was kind of nice to kind of go into it almost like someone who's never played the game. But at the same time, I do remember many parts of the game, and it just felt like they found a way to own it differently. I don't even know how to really put it to words exactly what I mean, right? But and of course, Druckmann is involved and all that, and make sure that the general feel of The Last of Us is there. But it's impressive to do what they did, right? It's not easy. I mean, we've seen many failed adaptations of video games to film or series, and they just nailed it. Like it's shocking, it's surprising, it's stunning. It was great. I like the changes they made to make it fit more for like a modern kind of like how it would work for us if we ever went through a pandemic. It'd be more of that kind of thing. But it was just crazy how they did it. And it was very unique in a way too, and I'm excited to see the future seasons to come.
I think that I agree that it did feel like its own thing in a lot of ways, and for me, that comes down to the performances. Like, yes, there's a lot that's taken from the original cast and the original performances, but like tonally, thematically, the show is the same as the game. It's just through a new filter of this new medium, but of course these different performances and these portrayals. It was just so cool to see such beloved characters be taken on by different actors and us not hate it, because how often does that happen, right? Like, it's like, I'm so used to this person. They're recasting when and you hate it. Obviously, they had to do that for the game. You can't have Ashley Johnson play a 14-year-old Ellie, and I think maybe Troy could have pulled off pulled off Joel, but obviously Pedro was an incredible choice. So yeah, those performances are really what made it feel different.
And I will say, like, The Last of Us, the game itself, was probably the only. And you guys are gonna hate me for this. Probably the only video game I cared about the story. Like, at first, when I first really got into stories, and like, I was, I was mostly like a multiplayer guy, but that was the first game I really like was dug into the story. I didn't really care about really playing the game at all, to be honest. It was fun, obviously, to do it, but to see that really transition to a series, and the way they did and adapted, and the performances, I agree, John, were perfect. They really were.
Yeah, that's a great point too, John. With like when we recast, even though this is a different medium, we still get attached to those original actors and actresses or those performances, whether it's voice or on screen. So that is really a testament where you could theoretically say, like, I love the game version of these characters. I love the TV version. I don't know which one is my definitive one. I don't have to pick. That's saying a lot, that the quality was there and that the performances kind of met that high bar. Tim, your thoughts on the final episode here?
Yeah, so before I go on that, so here's the other thing I'd kind of take of is, I think the biggest thing about The Last of Us is perspective. We've talked about that a lot. And I'll kind of mention, I wonder what the perspective of someone who watches this first and then plays the game, if they would be more inclined to like Pedro as Joel, and not like Ashley as much as they like the Ellie in the show. I'd be curious to see if someone plays the game after watching the show, if they're like, hey, I liked the show version better than I like the game.
That'd be a very curious case study. I think the barrier to entry for video games is so much higher, though. So it's like you'd have to find the right person who does play games and still give you that fresh perspective. Because like, if I asked my wife to sit down and play The Last of Us with a fresh set of eyes, she would of course like go like, I like the show better, just because she's not used to games, the pacing of games, the mechanics and stuff like that. So, but like, that's a great point to bring up. Like, I wonder
I'd be so curious
if you were able to find somebody with that perspective who is familiar with games. I'm sure someone's going to make a YouTube video out there.
But my thought on it, obviously, the whole thing was just amazing. I think they did a great job of this episode of bringing in information that we didn't know we needed. There's a few times with Joel and with Ellie, they give you some background and some context of what was going on in their lives before the meeting up. And, I got teary-eyed. I got emotional. And obviously that's a common theme with every one of these episodes. And I think last week I said that the last episode before this one felt the closest to the game. This to me is by far, out of all the episodes we've watched, the one where like shot for shot I felt like I was playing the video game. Yeah. And this is the first time I really felt like that with a lot of what happened in the show. And if you haven't watched this, or you're someone that's on the fence, I went to work and I told my assistant, I'm like, hey, I've been waiting to tell you because I know you like to binge stuff, but go binge this now. And her son was watching it, which is kind of funny. So, but I mean, we ended and my wife's like, now I got to wait a whole nother, like, she's like, where is this going to go now? Like, I don't see where they're going to go now with this. Like, they tie up the end, like, oh, you just wait.
No, she has to wait. Sorry, Tim. Yeah. She has to wait. Everyone who's like
running a show and tell from my garage.
Oh, no.
And, yeah.
Everyone that has watched this for the first time, experienced the story, I should say, for the first time, has been like, well, what now? And I'm like, I'm sorry, you have to wait. Right. Well, I could just Google it. You're not doing that. That's ridiculous. Don't do that.
Especially
be wary.
The next season, is it going to be multiple parts?
Yeah, for sure.
You can spoil multiple seasons for yourself if you Google it.
It's just not worth it. And then be careful. A buddy of ours, Ryan Gorman. So he did not know the story, and he got into the wrong algorithm on TikTok, and it got spoiled for him. So just be careful.
That was very frustrating. Like the second The Last of Us ended on HBO, I'm a TikTok user, and I'm in that same algorithm where I'm seeing Last of Us stuff. everybody was just posting part 2 stuff. Like the most brutal stuff from part 2 is like is almost to like, I don't know, just to farm views, I guess, because there's all these people who are like interested in what happens next. But man, that like incredible spoilers for what's to come. And I know it's tough. Like we're talking about a piece of entertainment medium that's been out for what, 2 years now at this point. So like to tell people to like keep the cap on spoilers is tough, because it's going to be another probably 2+ years before this show actually gets made. Yeah, it's going to be.
I kept seeing the boat scene. That was the one I kept seeing on TikTok.
Oh yeah, that's right for sure.
No,
but like now we're at the point where like I got to put the cap back on spoilers for a game that I've been talking openly about for the last year or so, because like whoever has wanted to play Last of Us Part 2 has played it. Now there's these 8 million people who have just watched the show that I got to worry about and not spoiling stuff for.
Well,
it's a weird situation to be in, I feel like because you can have movies based off of video games and story-based video games that have happened, or TV series, but like none come to mind where they've been hanging on every detail like this. Like it's like, oh my gosh, what happens next? This is the equivalent to Game of Thrones and what that looked like a few years back, where this was just water cooler talk every week. So I'm very curious to see what it looks like in the coming 2 years.
It's kind of an unfair ask for us. Like, we know what happens. We've been talking about The Last of Us Part 2 openly for so long. Like, if I want to talk about the fact that The Last of Us is actually just a prequel to Seinfeld, like, I should be able to talk about that stuff. Now I got to keep it under wraps for another 2 years until they make this season 2. It's ridiculous.
I get on freaking TikTok. Was it two nights ago or whatever, or mornings or whatever? And first thing is someone live playing part 2. Joel, right? Joel in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, I can't. I'm like, wait, I played this.
I know what happens.
Yes.
What do you?
I don't have to do this. What's wrong with me? So I watched it and I was miserable. But
not gonna lie, I got nervous there.
No. I wasn't gonna. Yeah, I'm not that guy. Not that guy, pal. But no, it's like for us as gamers, we're like, oh, we want to, but then we're telling people just shut up and enjoy the time you have to wait.
Yeah,
I'm fine doing that. Yeah.
Oh, me too. I was just trying to set that joke up for a while, but it's gonna be a fun 2.5-3 year wait probably for these people. It was longer for us, to be fair. It was 7 years for us.
Is it?
Hey, maybe when the second part comes out, we'll have news on a part 3.
Maybe.
Or a multiplayer game.
He's been hinting at that for sure.
Was this in our one of our chats? I feel like Druckmann is already like they've settled on their next game at Naughty Dog.
Yes,
they just haven't announced it.
He talked about Factions separately, right? Factions
Correct.
Is guaranteed.
Factions is in development. Like that. That is more information coming this year about it. Like that is like set to release somewhat soon, but they're already started working on. They actually announced that on the spoiler cast for the show that they did on the Kind of Funny Last of Us reaction show. They're like, yes, we sat down, we thought about all these, what they talked about is every time they start to make a new game, they tell everybody to come up with their own pitch, like come up with something new, let's talk about sequels we could do, and let's put that all on the board and let's see what makes the most sense. And he said we made that decision and we've already started working on whatever that may be.
Uncharted 5. This is great.
They're never touching. Naughty Dog is never touching Uncharted again. But I do think it's The Last of Us Part 3. My money's on The Last of Us Part 3.
Has to be.
For sure.
Has to be. They were going new IP, and then HBO happened.
Like with the game alone, it was pop culture. Right now, you've expanded beyond that. You can't not do Part 3.
Yeah, and I think, and I know, like everyone always like, oh, I want to see that studio do another IP, and sink their teeth into a new project. I think they love working on this stuff, guys. Like, I think Neil Druckmann is just like hankering to write more of the story. Like they love this stuff. I think if it was really a chore for them, then they really wouldn't do it. I think that's where you would get into that situation where it's like,
do you guys think they would ever do HBO spin-offs that are just not games, right? Just straight up spin-offs?
So yeah, they talked about that too. They talked about that too, and Neil's like, that's an interesting idea, but I don't think we'd ever get to the point where we're making Last of Us content specifically for TV film that's not game related. Yeah, he said he doesn't think that would happen, but never off the table. But he doubts it. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Consider this. So, obviously at this point, with how successful that show was, you can imagine HBO just dumping a truck full of money and being like, Sony, Naughty Dog, let's make Part 3 happen so we can eventually, continue this on. But like, how cool would it be if Part 3 is the game, the next Naughty Dog game? And we talked about hindsight and perspective. So Druckmann he goes through this game, he writes this game, and it comes out 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now, right? Close to it, a little less.
Right.
And some of these story beats change because of the perspective, just a little bit, not much, like things that he wishes he thought about. What if he's got Craig Mazin as like a creative consultant on this next game, because Craig seems to really understand this world.
That would be
and these
so
characters.
Cool.
Just saying.
That would be so cool.
A little pipe dream.
The Last of Us Part 3 with Craig Mazin as like a story consultant. That would be cool.
Yeah. They seem to work well together, very well.
Absolutely. Auto Rocket in chat said it would be crazy if they didn't do a part 3, almost like George R.R. not doing book 6 while HBO is doing the show, for sure. But so a couple things there. I think that The Last of Us Part 2, much like Part 1, ended in a place that I would be totally okay if they didn't do a sequel to it, right? Like, I would be totally fine if the end of The Last of Us Part 2 was the end of the story, because like it makes sense. It's a very fitting ending for that. The fact that we're getting rewind a little bit, the fact that we're getting 2 more seasons of the show, those 2 seasons are both going to be Part 2 of the game. So just to make sure we're clear there, like they're not planning on an additive story to the second game, right? Like this is the next 2 seasons are going to be The Last of Us Part 2 stretch out over 2 seasons, because it's just so much more content.
Right.
Yeah, man, crazy stuff to think about. My gosh, we could talk about the future all day with where this could go, but I think what we should do is talk about the past, and that is the finale here. Let's talk about spoilers. So again, hit the pause button. If you have not seen the episode, go watch it and come back. But we're going to take a deep dive into everything spoilery for the finale for HBO's The Last of Us. John, I know we don't have notes here as we normally would, but where do we want to start?
That's a great question. I have the episode up. I'm scrubbing through it. I have not actually rewatched it yet. I don't know what it is. It's something about The Last of Us where, like, when I finish The Last of Us, whether it be the game and obviously now this show, I just kind of need separation from it. That wasn't the case week to week, because obviously it was an ongoing story and I was just, enjoying and feasting on that content and wanted to see all those details. But the second I rolled credits on the last episode last week, I have not seen this again. But I don't know. What do we want to jump into? Like, I mean, some of the biggest moments, some of the things that got recreated. Do we want to start right at the beginning because they added a scene there? That's a good place to start, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Real quick, runtime on this. What was this, about 45, 46 minutes?
Yeah, on the shorter side.
So I've got the last scene right around 47 minutes. Yep, 47, 48. Okay.
So going into this, we had heard that it was going to be right around there in terms of runtime. And a discussion I had with a few people, including Ricky, who I work with, I said, hey, roughly 45 minutes for this last episode. And he was like, how are they going to pull that off? And I was like, honestly, if you think about it, in the game, what equates to the last level is a lot of shooting.
So much.
Yeah,
of
a lot of murder.
Yeah.
It's a lot of gameplay. Now, you could really wipe out a good chunk of that and tell your story and include every single high beat. And they did exactly that. Like, I never felt for a second pacing was an issue, that this episode should have been longer.
Right.
I think it was right where it needed to be. Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And I heard some of that, some of those complaints or worries when we got that runtime as well. Like in our movie chat, people are saying, oh, only 45 minutes, are going to wrap it up that quickly. That's all you need, guys. That final fight in the hospital, that Firefly Hospital, that's a good hour and a half of gameplay probably. And if you're bad at it, like some of us might be, it's like 2 hours.
Yeah. So honestly, if you think about, a comparison for me right now is Mandalorian in terms of run times. Those are all over the board. And a lot of people complain that those run times are too short, especially in that first season. I think that second episode is like barely a half hour. For me, if your story's good, if your production's good and it executes, I don't care how short or how long the episode is. Tell your story. That's the nice part about not being on network anymore, right? You can kind of tell it within these parameters on your streaming service. So I had no doubt that was going to be a high quality finale with no reservation based on what we saw prior, of course. But seeing 45 minutes, I was like, they know what they're doing.
All right,
we're good.
How about this for context? I just pulled up a YouTube Last of Us Part 1 all cutscenes compilation. So just all the cutscenes from The Last of Us Part 1. I just found the moment when they're on the bridge, when they're walking towards whatever, I forget whatever city this hospital's in, and Ellie's kind of in a bad mood, kind of like this episode starts after the first cutscene there, or the first flashback. Ellie's in a bad mood. She's trying to make the joke, stuff like that, but they're on their way right before the giraffe scene. It is 29 minutes before the end of this video. So from where this episode starts in the game, 29 minutes exists in the video game. If you take out gameplay, it's only 29 minutes of story in the game. So it's actually more in the show.
Yeah, how about that? That's insane.
Crazy.
Let's talk about that intro.
Yes.
John, I'm going to pass it right back over to you. Lead away.
That is so cool. Yeah, so the first scene we get the birth of Ellie. We get Ellie's mother. What was it? Was it Anna, right? I think it was Anna. Sound right?
I think so.
Anna, that sounds right, right?
I think so.
So we've got this pregnant woman running through the woods. We instantly know what's going on, and of course she is portrayed by Ashley Johnson, which if you're new to The Last of Us, Ashley Johnson was the voice actress behind Ellie. So Ashley Johnson got to play Ellie and Ellie's mother. But that was a cool little... So that I guess that's the one big change, not even just the fact that we got this scene. We get the origin behind the answer to why is Ellie immune, right? A question that I never really cared to ask in the game. I kind of always thought like she was just born with this extra, this defense mechanism or whatever. But interesting, like, I think the masses, the mainstream media, they're probably asking that question a little bit more than gamers would be, because we're kind of used to our stories not always making the most sense.
Right.
Yeah, so we get that here. So she's pregnant. She's up in this house here. She's getting chased by infected. She's hoping that her Firefly friends are here, Marlene included. She's alone, and she ends up getting bit while she's delivering Ellie. Umbilical cord is still attached. She's bit, and that's where the infection gets crossed, and Ellie gets it as she's being born, and that's the answer to how that happens.
It's funny because I've seen a few articles, and I think IGN was one of them, and it was like, it was a burning question we had forever, and I was like, I never once thought of it. Not one time.
I've never even heard anybody ask.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cared. Nobody cared.
No, this is a capitalize on the TV.
I think you just assume.
Yeah,
we just assume she's just immune, because there's so many other games out there where the character's just immune. There's no rhyme or reason on why they're immune. They're
exactly.
Just immune.
And think about it this way. The fact that we didn't care, but they still gave us the answer, and we're not mad about it. Think about our famous example of this, Han Solo, right? The Han Solo movie. What's your last name? Solo. Oh my God, I don't care, right? Like, what an eye roll, giving us stupid information for no reason.
For sure. And
what's her name? Like, immune.
Ellie immunity.
I would have lost it. I would have gotten up and left my own house. It totally lost my train of thought now. When it comes to how things are explained, I feel like a lot of the time, especially in video games, I don't care. And I think video games tell stories better than any other medium, by the way.
They definitely can.
In a lot of cases.
For sure.
So there are certain facts that are worth exploring and certain ones that are not. Like, you don't need to know the why behind everything. Like, even a relatively prominent fact, such as why is Ellie immune? But again, they did it in a way that matters and makes sense. Like, it was exactly the polar opposite of Solo, like you said.
Exactly, like information for information's sake. And this was done. It was just so like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, I don't really care. Like, it's not like groundbreaking that I have this new information about The Last of Us. Like, I'm not like, it's not a revelation that now we know. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Now we have that.
I still didn't think about it after that intro. I was like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
For sure.
Whatever. That was it.
It was bigger to me that Ashley Johnson got to, be on screen and play Ellie's mother. That was a bigger deal to me.
It was, elimination here. We're getting down to the wire. I'm like, when are we going to see Ashley? So what a great role, and that meant a lot to that actress there to bring that character to life because of how special Ellie is, and in the last 10 years of video games here. Right. So really fitting that she got to play that.
It's really cool too that us as who's played the games, like we can go in and say, oh, we don't care. We're just so happy to see all this other stuff being adapted. And then people who have never played the game to come in and say that makes sense. Like, they're probably excited to hear that's how she's immune, right? Like, so it's both sides. We don't care, and then the people that never played The Last of Us just don't know and don't care, right? It's just like a perfect mix of audience there.
Yeah.
For sure.
So with this opening scene, the scene that didn't exist in the game, not only did we get that answer, the Ellie's immunity story there, but we also got a little bit of the relationship between Anna and Marlene, a little bit of background as to why Ellie's kind of a figure in Marlene's life, and why that she would take on this burden and even know what's going on at this point, right? So it was just kind of cool to see that dynamic and see Marlene tragically have to go through what she went through with Anna there.
Yeah, that was intense, and I do appreciate that context because we knew it existed in the game, just not to what degree. So just more fleshing out that universe there.
Yep. Yep. So after that, we move on. We're back with Joel and Ellie. We've got an Ellie that is very distant. She's obviously like just gone through some stuff with David. That situation, like it's almost, you almost forget that heavy of an episode is what we just came off of, right? Like we just came off of Ellie in that David situation. She just lost her mind and absolutely murdered the heck out of him with a machete, covered in blood, and all the violence that we know is going to be a huge theme in her future. But yeah, now her and Joel are kind of just walking towards the destination, and he's really putting out the effort there. He's really trying to connect. Like he's reaching and he's talking about the jokes and he's opening up about his life because he just opened up the most he ever had in that final episode when he called her baby girl, right? They're almost on like two different emotional sides of the spectrum with this relationship where like he felt that connection.
Every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. That for sure. He's just so ready to let this relationship continue and to develop it more. And she's at a point emotionally where she's just very shut down right now.
I was going to say on the flip side, they've got that dichotomy here. So because she is so reserved and like you said, distant, I love seeing this side of Joel. We really haven't seen much of that so far in the series, but he's really trying to make her feel good and comfortable. But on the flip side, he's loving this. He's loving this relationship, right? There's shades of what he saw with his daughter all those years ago. So like this is therapeutic in a way. Like the way he talks to her is like a proud dad talking to a daughter and just like this small talk. And I just love the way they connected there, even though she was quiet.
The way he became comfortable, right? And opened up about his, suicide attempt and I think was it this 2 episodes ago where or no, the first episode, the anxiety medication that he had and opening up that he has anxiety.
Oh right, yeah, that's
from the daughter and everything.
Yeah,
right?
when they were in Jackson, he kind of had his panic attack too. Like yeah, that's kind of new for Joel for us.
Yeah, for us for sure as who play the game. But I think it just goes back to what we talked about, John, or what you said is the performance. Like Pedro and Bella just killed it. They connect so well. It's like they're handing each other their cues without even trying. Right? It's just automatic. Flip of the switch. I'm gonna act this way. You're gonna act this way, and it's just flowing.
Chemistry is so good.
It's just chemistry's awesome. It really is.
So my take on when that part started, I felt like as that episode started, and I remembered the last episode, I felt it was more traumatizing the last episode for her than I felt in the game. I felt it so much more when she's not opening up and she's so like just shuts herself down because you see people do that all the time, and just like no matter how hard you try, they just don't respond. And I think that's a real big indication of real life trauma. We see it in video games, but to see it portrayed so well in the show, because like that's life-changing trauma. And Joel's picking up on the clues. He knows that she's not right, and the first thing that goes in his head is like, hey, don't do what I tried to do. And that's why he opens up in the story. And when I'm watching that, my heart's just like, oh god, I feel so bad for her. Like, and I feel like it was so much more the way they did it in the show because no one came to her rescue. She saved herself and killed him and was like,
yeah, she walked out. She walked out of there herself. She didn't. Yeah, Joel wasn't there.
Right, and I mean, I haven't played the game in a little bit, but that's kind of how I felt with it. Is like, damn, that hits. Like that's that's real. So that's how I felt.
I totally agree with you that like I don't know what it is, if it's the performance, if it's direction, but her being so emotionally distraught and detached right now hit so much harder in the show. It really did. I remember that from the game. I remember her being a little bit closed off and a little bit. I think when I played the game, I almost thought it was kind of more like trepidation about what was coming up next. Like unsure about how the Fireflies would receive them and stuff like that. I feel like that's kind of the emotion I had behind her attitude and behavior in the game. In the show, it's very apparent that she is emotionally wrecked at the moment. Like she just went through, like you said, like life-changing trauma, and she's still processing that. So
it's real. I mean, people feel that and experience that. Like I think that's why it hit so much harder for me. Is like that's not fake.
Yeah.
She's portraying it as an actor, but that's not like that's real.
The show has, again, back to the actors and actresses, they have really hit on emotion and mental health, and like shown. I feel it. I think that's what you guys are saying too. You felt how much Ellie was hurting, right? And how Joel was hurting with his issues. Everybody deals with these everyday things. Now they're dealing with it in a essential pandemic end of the world, right? So it's like, how deep can they really show that more than the game did. for that, right?
Yeah,
For
for
those
sure.
things,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
themes, for sure.
It's almost like
And
we're
you know,
like walking on glass, like afraid to admit that the show's doing stuff better than the games because we obviously love the game so
Right.
much. But yeah, they for
you
sure
know,
did it better.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Then we get to one of the most iconic scenes after this. I think that we've all been waiting to see how they're going to pull this off, what it's going to look like. Just waiting to experience that again. And that's when we get to the giraffes here. It's awesome. It's framed just like the game. Somebody brought up in our chat that it felt a little weird visually, and I'm like, okay, well, it's definitely not because it doesn't look right, because it's not really CGI. That's a real giraffe.
Yeah, it was not CGI.
No,
yeah.
it's not. There is some CGI elements to like the
In the
facial,
background, right? That's
well,
what I talked about in the
and other stuff too, right? But like it is framed like I said in the group chat. It's framed like it's a set from a live show. Like it's framed like a set from a play. Like it is a shot that you are just watching everything unfold, and that's how it is in the game too. That's the way it's framed, and that it stands out that way in the game too. And I think that this was their shot to swing for the fences, to really take a iconic moment / shot / piece of art from the game and 1-to-1 paste it into this new medium, and just like show you, like, we know what the game is, we know what the most important things are for you. This is the cover art. This is the showpiece when it comes to the most beautiful thing you're going to see in The Last of Us. We're doing it the exact same way.
I had zero qualms with that. I thought it was beautiful. The execution, all of it, it looked very good. This is a moment I had a smile on my face as I'm watching this episode and this moment play out. And even just a stupid little moment before this, I think I texted in one of our group chats, when they put the ladder up. Like, it's such a stupid little thing, but like,
Yeah.
in Uncharted and Last of Us, like, you do that like 1,000 times in each of these games, where you put your ladder up and you help your colleague, essentially whoever your teammate is at the time in those given games, go up. And it was so stupid, because I'm sitting there going, I know what that feels like on the DualSense, you know? Like, anyway, they get up there, the giraffes look great, all of it was awesome, and I think the payoff was really nice.
Yeah, for sure. In that ladder scene, like they pull off that's really only supposed to work in a game, because you're so used to
Right.
Ellie dropping the ladder for you and you getting back up, and like she doesn't drop the ladder. I have no way to get back up. Ellie dropped the ladder,
Right.
and that's like a game mechanic thing that really only is supposed to work in a game, but it works great in this too. Just the timing of it, and where she is emotionally, and the fact that she just found something cool up there. Yeah,
I feel like I reference the DiCaprio gif all the time, but literally I went,
oh yeah, the points
and
in.
Christina's
Yeah.
watching it, or watching it with me. She's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "That's the game. That's the game."
It's the
Like,
game.
imagine me trying,
So
like,
happy to see that.
explaining the ladder to anyone who
Yeah.
hasn't played the video game. Like, what are you talking
Why do you
about?
care about this ladder,
What is
you
a ladder?
weirdo?
What does it matter?
How many ladders I
Yeah.
set up?
I mean,
Yeah.
I do
Right.
agree. And back to obviously the scene itself was a true replication of what the game was, but for me to see that was like Ellie's awakening from what we just talked about, right? Her total being distraught and her mental health, it like opened her back up, just like the game did, right? The game was like that
Right.
moment where it was able to really bring Ellie back to earth and reconnect with Joel and get moving to the Fireflies.
The realization that, hey, the
was-
world's not all shit.
It's
Yeah.
not all shit.
There
That
still
is-
are
it is-
giraffes.
there's still are giraffes. There's
Some
two things-
CGI drafts, some
two
not
things for me.
CGI.
It was that that scene itself with the ladder, obviously, but then getting into the draft scene so similar to the game. That was Druckmann's calling to us, right? Like that, like us as gamers.
It's a statement.
Hey, do not forget, or do not think we ever forgot about you guys that have been with us for 10 years. We know
Right.
you love it for this reason. Here you go. And I was like, thank you. Like that's all I said. I'm like, thank you. This is perfect. Like the scene was amazing. I love
I
it.
think if you were to say, hey, like, write down 5 moments, no matter how big or how small, prior to the season that you want to see from the game, that's one of them for me. It's the top 5 moment where there's just like this serenity and this peace before the kind of the final battle, so to speak. But yeah,
The
I
massacre.
think you're right, JT.
Yeah.
They nailed it.
Tank in the chat says the giraffe wasn't credited on IMDb, so it was CGI. Tank, I don't think giraffes can be part of SAG. I don't think they can join the Actors Guild. But fact check me on
We
that.
don't know.
I could be wrong. The very next scene after the giraffe is actually something new, and actually is kind of a big deal. I kind of forgot about this. Joel opens up Screen Actors Giraffe. Tank, I hate you so much. I love you. The Screen Actors Giraffe.
I love that so much.
So yeah, so right after this draft scene, they start talking about a scar that Joel has on his face, and she said, "Where'd that come from?" And she says, "Some guy shot and he missed." And this is where Joel opens up and says, "Hey, just so you know, I'm the guy that shot and missed." Obviously, leading into the fact that he tried to take his own life after everything that happened with Sarah and realizing what was going on with the world. So yeah, that was something completely new. We didn't get that from the game.
Why he's deaf in that ear? Yeah.
Right. Yes, for sure. Another revelation as to why he doesn't have hearing there. Yeah. When you start to kind of look back at it, and these couple of things we've talked about, they really have added a lot of really specific story things for Joel that weren't in the game to really flesh out why he is who he is.
It makes that character much. I wouldn't say the character wasn't appealing, but much more appealing even to that degree. There's a lot more depth than we even knew before.
It was
But
only
I gotta
Sarah
say,
in the game was just Sarah. That was the only driving, the only driving motivation.
That is maybe Pedro's finest microcosm of a performance, where he can't talk about it and looks like he's choking up a little bit, because that felt real to me. And I felt like that was a moment where if you watch this in a theater, you're gonna hear a pin drop. JT, I know you were gonna say something.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say in the game it kind of goes back to, oh my God, Bill, right? They hinted at a lot with his relationship with I can't remember his significant other's name in the game. Frank, yes. I think they hinted at Joel's suicide attempt in the game. I may be wrong. It's been a very
I'll have to
long
watch
time since I
back.
played. But they hinted at it. I don't know if it was like kind of like something in the background that made you like assume it or whatever it was. I can't remember. But there was some hint. But John, I agree completely that they really dove into that and explained it and allowed us to connect more with Joel than we ever thought we would.
Right, and especially to have it be a moment between him and Ellie when we're at their most emotionally vulnerable, and the time where they're bonding the most that we've ever seen.
I came so close to breaking down during that scene. I was like pretty much crying. And what did it for me is when they were talking and she said, "Yeah, time heals all, right?" And he said it wasn't time that healed me.
Yeah, dude, that was beautiful.
And I was like, no way. I was like, oh, like as a dad, like I just like think about like how difficult that had to have been, and like I couldn't. I
That's
got
a big
emotional,
moment.
and I was like,
So after 20 years of just shutting everything down and not being able to open up, and to think that that love he had for Sarah would never be again, and just to see him acknowledge that it certainly is here again it's
perfectly sets up the rest of this, because
yes, it gives more context to why he does what he does and why he's
yeah.
We'll get to that. So
it was all Nathan Drake on us here.
It basically goes Nathan Drake. He does go Nathan Drake here.
You get true real gameplay now.
We'll let that guy anywhere near an old tomb. So interesting part next here. In the game, we go through quite a big fight of infected here. We are we're walking through, we're getting to the Firefly, and this place is kind of swarming with infected, and there's a big fight here, which adds to the runtime of the game. Right. But I've seen some discourse about how there really aren't any infected in this show. Like, for a show about a zombie apocalypse, call it what you will, right? That's what it is. The threat of the infected really kind of only popped up in one episode. Like, we've seen a couple of them here and there, but that one scene where we got like a ton of them in that horde was really kind of the only thing. So I've seen that criticism. Does it bother any of you guys? Is that something that you guys are having an issue with?
I don't think. Here's my stance. So I kind of wish that we had a few more of those moments, but it doesn't make me think any less of what we got. Does that make sense? So like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I want
more for sure.
More of that action. Like, that was an incredible sequence in episode 4 or 5 when they come out of the ground, whatever that was. I would have loved the moment with Ellie and David, but at the same time, if you think about what serves the story, like, can you get by without it? Typically, that's the thought process. Then you cut it or you don't do it. So I wouldn't score this any less because it missed it. But I think it's also valid that people are like, well, I would have loved to see more of that threat and felt more of that fear. Because I'll tell you what, I felt it in the game. Even though we had these emotional moments for an hour or two and these cut scenes and you're going with Henry and David or whoever. You get back, though, past that, and you are fighting for your life. There's not a lot of that here. It's okay, though. So that's my long answer.
I just think it's tough, and you guys will agree, I'm sure, to really bring that into a series. I mean, constant fighting and shooting and only having 6 bullets and still find a way to kill people. It's really hard to make that adapted into a series. So I think, and I John, you may know for sure, but I think Druckmann made the point that it was tough to do it for the first season. They wanted to see how they could really use the infected. and not make it seem too gamey or like the video
Yeah,
game, right?
it's a fine line.
And they're going to attempt to do more, I guess, more infected for the seasons to
Well,
come.
you
But
have to. Such a bigger
but
part of that story.
yeah, for sure, it definitely is. But I'm with Joe. Like, would I have liked to see more infected fight scenes? Sure. Is it going to affect how great that story was and how amazing the performances were? Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm on the same boat as well. I just think that you didn't need to do it. And here's my thought on it is, let's say they added another 45 minutes of, fight scenes against infected and all that stuff. What do you take away? And I would
Yeah.
rather have the content that I have and the way they presented it to me to learn more about the story, because I feel like the way they present it to you and the way that it's done is so impactful, because at the end, again, I come back to what's about to happen. This is the first time Joe goes psycho. And you see that with the infected throughout the game. It, like, there's a part during where he slashes the zombie, like Ellie's about to get eaten by the big bloater or whatever, and he just like goes to town on the thing. Like, this is the first time I feel like we truly see the merciless side of Joel, when you don't really, you see it a little bit like brief, but this time he's like straight ahead. And I feel like
Yeah.
it makes all the other scenes so much more impactful. So
Right. Yeah,
my
I
thoughts
think
on it, at least.
I agree with what you guys are saying. I think the big complaint is that if they're not even action sequences, right? Not necessarily like, oh, we're missing gameplay because they should be fighting. I think people are saying that they're missing the threat. Like, there's just not a lot of infected around, so the threat of this apocalypse doesn't feel real. My perspective is just so skewed on it because I just know what the world is. I did play the game. I played the game a bunch of times, and I played part 2 a few times. Like, so I have this. I know what this world is. So to me, it didn't stand out at all that there weren't enough infected. But I can understand that perspective. It just didn't. It didn't. Not only did it not bother me, I didn't notice it until I saw other people bring it up. But it's
100%
fair.
agree. Same here. I
By
didn't
the
notice
time-
someone said something.
we got maybe midway or even to episode 6 or 7. At that point, I was kind of like, I was hoping for a little bit more in that. But again, not to the point where it detracted my thought of the overall quality.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah, after we get that conversation, that very heavy conversation with Joel and Ellie, they kind of get ambushed by what we find out are the Fireflies here. They get knocked out. Joel wakes up in what looks kind of like a hospital, and he's obviously immediately panicking. Where's Ellie? Is she okay? And Marlene walks in and kind of greets him, and then we kind of come to the realization that, okay, they found the Fireflies here. And there's so many ways to talk about this, but we know what happens from here. Marlene kind of gives the memo dump that, yes, this is real. We have this cure, but it's going to come at the cost of Ellie's life. They give a little bit more context, I guess, in this. There's a little bit. I think there's like an
Never
audio.
really say they have the cure, though. That's the part that I'll like key in on a lot. They say they think this could develop a cure, and it could save lives.
That is a point that splits off in two branches, because I think that they wanted that to be a bit ambiguous for the show, but for the game there is no ambiguity. Neil Druckmann said, like, it's it. Like that, like, he has commented multiple times. He's like, if you listen to that last audio log before you walk into the operating room, that is the definitive, like, they are confident this is a real thing. So that ambiguity doesn't exist in the game, and I think it's an easy out for people to kind of talk about if they agree with Joel or not. And I think that you can't ignore the fact that the show does leave that a little bit more ambiguous here. I think that they do that on purpose too, but in the game it's not. Like, that the cure is they're real confident. Like, this will be the cure. Like, sure, freak things can happen. None of this is real, so what's the point of even talking about it, right? But like, they're saying it's going to happen. Show, not so much.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting differentiator between the two here, but it still, to me, felt the same. Like, I didn't feel like, I don't know, Tim, maybe because you brought it up, maybe you can elaborate if you felt different. But to me, I was like, I some people would say, hey, if there's a chance, we have to do this for the greater good. I'm of the mind that Joel is. Sorry,
Yeah,
you're all going down. I'm taking the girl. That's it. So I don't know, Tim. Did it matter for you how this was presented?
No, not at all. I mean, they could be ready to do the cure, and I'd be like, "You're not killing my daughter."
Yes.
That's how he's treating at this point.
That's why that's why I'm bothered
without anyone's consent. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't talk. It didn't talk to her about it.
Right.
You know,
there's a lot wrong with it for sure.
Right.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. Like,
Does it make what Joel did right?
Hold on.
Probably not.
we'll dive
but-
into all that, but that's why
Yeah.
this perspective kind of bothers me because I think it takes away from the point of the end of the game.
Right.
I think
I agree.
I think
I agree.
I think if you're like focusing on whether or not they thought the cure would be real or not, like that is taking away from the point of what we're supposed to take away from what Joel is about to do.
Right.
So let's talk about what Joel's about to do.
Listen, I'm gonna just start off with a hot take here. Joel's the bad guy, right? I mean,
Joel
I
is-
get the whole that's your daughter in a
Right,
sense, and
Perspective, which we won't
I was just gonna
spoil
say the same
part
thing.
2.
no,
but
I
yes.
will not spoil.
Yeah.
part two,
100%.
but-
And that the way you phrase that
But-
is very interesting because here's what I would say: Joel is a bad guy, but is Joel the bad guy? Is he like? Because I think there's people that will. Okay, let's pause. Let's talk about what happens here. We haven't gotten.
JT, don't forget your train of thought.
Yeah,
because I know you're gonna.
We're gonna dive into this. We're gonna have the conversation that we had 10 years ago when the game came out, right? So,
Yeah.
Marlene tells Joel that we're gonna get this cure. We're gonna do this, but we have to open up Ellie's brain and we have to take this thing out and we have to get it. She's gonna die. She will give her life for us to find this cure, right? And immediately Joel is not having that. There's no thought process. There is no conversation. There is find my bearings. Where is she? We need to figure this out. Marlene tries to have her goons escort him. That's not going to happen. Joel turns the tables, grabs the guns, and oh my God, the way they frame this and the way they direct this is so cool. It is so good. It simultaneously gets me pumped up because I love Joel and I love Ellie and I love what he's about to fight for, but it also is like terrifying because you think about the stakes and like this again gives you a different perspective on the way we experience this in the game because in the game it's kind of like a stealth mission for a little bit. Like you have to try to do the best you can and take out as many as you can stealthily and then you kind of go guns a-blazing. But in the show, man, they filmed this like an action movie. Like this is like Rambo, dude. Like he's just guns a-blazing, beeline headed for that operating room. So the way they did this differently was whew.
We only know the Fireflies as the bad guys, kind of, right? Like in the game. So like you're killing people to go save her. You don't think twice about anything else, which is again, we'll get to it in about 2 years. Why part 2 is so special to me. JT, what were you gonna say? You had some thoughts here.
I mean, just I'm not trying to spoil part 2, obviously, but I've always thought, even going back to the game, obviously as the protagonist, as being Joel in the game, you don't think this, right? You think you're gonna think this. He's the bad guy. Like if someone tells you, like in the end, it's I get it's the whole connection of that's maybe your daughter now and you love her and all this, but we're talking about saving the literal world. And you do that.
There's a
but he's saving his world by doing that.
There's so much perspective because if you tell this story from a different angle, which is what the part 2 is all about, and there's no spoilers there like that. The evolution.
I gotta stop talking about it. Actually, I will. You guys can continue. I'll bring up my reason for thinking this. I keep thinking of part 2. That's why. So let me erase this whole thought process.
Yeah.
And when we get to part 2 and talk about it.
Right.
We'll get
There's a big factor there, but even without that, even without that context of what more information we get for part 2, whatever. Just when you just say the fact that this guy, some random guy, just killed all of these scientists and people doing research who were about to create a cure because he wanted to save this little girl that wasn't even his daughter. When you just say that, like without context,
he shot up a hospital.
He shot up a hospital with brilliant researchers and liberators, and he killed all these people and stopped this possible, if not whatever, cure. Like that sounds bad, and like I can see how you can that guy sucks. That guy's really bad. But it's all about perspective. We just spent 10 hours with these people, and we just saw this relationship build. So now we understand that love, and we start to relate, and it's very different.
Initially played, I'm definitely thinking differently, right? And he's doing what's best to save his world, just like Joe said. But in the grand scheme, and definitely with part 2, I am a complete opposite thought process. And
No, so Courtney in the chat says she finds it interesting because Tim and Joe have kids, and their first thought is to talk about how Joel is in fact saving the kid, even though it's not his kid. And me and John are kind of talking about the bigger picture and saving the world. I'm only bringing it up just for the point of conversation. I totally empathize with Joel. I don't have a definitive like, yes, he's bad for he's objectively bad for doing this, but like I don't have
he kills people.
Right. Yeah.
For sure.
I don't have a definitive like whether or not like I condemn him as an evil person for making this decision, that specific decision. Like I am so I've known about the story and I've been engrossed in the story for 10 years, and even I am still like, I don't know, like, this sucks. All this sucks. And that's the point.
So it's why I love The Last of Us Part 2 so much. Again, without spoilers, I can't believe they went that route. And I can't believe that they forced you to think from the other side. Because, again, I said this on our spoiler cast for The Last of Us Part 2 a few years back. Like, the world doesn't do that. We don't stop for a second and think about how the other person or the other, whatever it is feeling. But this made us do that. And I just can't wait for everybody who has not experienced that story and, they haven't played the video game to get to this in a few years. Like, what discussion is this going to bring?
What do we think about the
theory? Oh, no, I have this personal theory, and I won't, obviously no spoilers on part 2, but they're not going to get into the beginning of the game until way later in the season or the following season. I think they're going to do some prequel stuff.
I don't think so. I think you have to do it the same way. But let's not go too far down there. We'll talk about that when we talk about that.
I don't think you could do what they did in Mandalorian and just pivoted.
I know.
So, people would lose their minds.
Why are we not talking about the Fireflies? We're just talking about Joel. The Fireflies aren't good either. Why are we talking about good and bad? The Fireflies bombing places at the beginning of the game we're talking about, like, they're not good either. Like, this isn't, no one's good. Right.
But
we've discovered that no matter where you go, no one's good. So why the fuck would I give up my daughter? Go save your daughter, or at least have the conversation.
So I don't think the conversation is whether. I don't think anybody's defending the Fireflies. I think they're defending the outcome. People are defending the possible outcome. Like, who cares who makes the cure? The Fireflies can go F off. They can all die for the stuff they've done, right? But like, at the end of the day, the answer is a cure to the disease that has destroyed humanity. Like, it is not. It is not. It is right. It's nothing to blink your eyes at. Like, it is such a impactful, profound situation that, like, that's insane. Nobody would ever want to be put in that situation to make that decision.
John, that's speaking nothing to what we get to know in part 2. Again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but that alone is an objective thought. You cannot argue this. He is literally choosing someone he just met over the saving of the world. I think.
All right, Tim. I got one thought before I'm done with this
I
point.
Was Joel. I died as Joel 7,000 times. I love Joel.
It took JT 4 hours to do that. So I think confidently, if like we'll talk in a few years, easily 9 out of 10 people would do what Joel did.
Right. That's
easily.
High. I don't know.
I think you get to 99 out of 100. Yeah.
Hey, fair enough, man.
Sure.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
So here's the question for everyone. Part 3, they developed a cure.
I thought part 2 was too far. Okay.
Listen. Part 3, they develop a cure. Looking back on what Joel did, would you feel differently?
Well, with the outcome, sure. Of course, with that information.
If they find a way to get a cure without killing someone, would you feel differently about what Joel did and
There's
part 1?
There's too many factors to talk about.
I know. That's like saying, like, if the bad thing wasn't bad, would it still be bad?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly my point.
I get it. I think we're getting.
Because they were going to kill someone.
I think we're getting too far.
We're ahead of ourselves.
Last-ditch effort. What if they could have done something else without resorting to that?
Yeah,
that's always the question. Hindsight,
right? Sure. With
that's
that,
like, that's.
I already agree with Joel. So yeah, of course, with that hindsight, I'll agree.
We're just going to condone it because it's in a post-apocalyptic time.
Listen,
doesn't justify killing a child.
Should Derek Kramer have eaten that death wing? Of course not.
Okay, so
Tim, it was great.
Let's circle back to this conversation though. So Tim, you say it doesn't justify killing a child. But Joel's just in killing a dozen other human beings just because she's a child.
No winning this argument.
So you don't care about the fact that it's a loss of human life.
No,
you care about your connection to the character.
Listen. After part 2, we've talked about this a few times. I feel the same way, but I don't feel better about it. I still feel that way. I don't feel good about my decision.
I know.
I don't feel good about it.
I don't even think part 2 changes.
You don't feel good,
right? I don't even think
about it.
part 2 even changed this conversation. I think the end of the game is exactly like what we are all supposed to take away from the beginning of part 2. It doesn't even matter.
Okay,
Right.
but what about in part 4?
Oh,
when
boy, oh boy.
Oh shit! I didn't think about part 4.
Time.
Like I said,
it's like Attack of the Clone, but there's only one infected, so it's Attack of the Infect. That's it.
oh, God. All right. So yeah, that's the conundrum. That's the conversation we've had about the ending of The Last of Us. If you've just experienced this story for the first time, welcome to what this this discourse can turn into, because that's exactly what it can turn into. But yeah, there's
I can't wait to watch this back.
There's no.
I can't wait to watch it back.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. But there's no answer here. There's no answer here. Like it is like sure, it's the good of mankind versus the most important thing that you personally hold dear to yourself. Right? That's it. Like how do you answer that question?
So it's perspective. That's all it is. I mean, this is what we come down to every single episode is perspective. And the perspective is it's, that's everyone else's world. But for Joel, Ellie is his world. And if they take that away, Joel has nothing anymore. And he just got that back.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And you won't lose it again, right? That's the perspective there, is that he lost it once. He will do anything not to lose that again after all this time.
The spectrum, right?
Yep.
100%.
It's full circle.
Yeah,
the reason he lost his daughter at the beginning is the same way. He's just sitting back and doing nothing. He's listening and taking their word for it. And that's what happens at the beginning of the show.
A bad guy.
Like
they're all bad.
You're a bad guy, okay?
Tess says it at the beginning of the movie or the show. We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time. There's your
Here's
answer.
the reality. Everyone in this show is shitty. So
it's very true.
Yeah.
Everything is gray. That's how it goes.
But a way to save the world is for Joel not to murder everyone.
So
might not be a world worth saving.
Right, it might not be for him at least. Auto Rocket in the chat says, "Does anybody think if they asked Ellie, she would sacrifice herself?" That is very tough. That is tough to answer because you have to there's. I don't want to spoil anything with part 2, but there's conversations that happen in part 2 around that very topic, right? And I can't remove myself from that information and answer that question. I don't if you were to ask me. I
totally missed the question because you went out for a second for me, John. What? I'm sorry.
Does anybody think that if they did ask Ellie, she would sacrifice herself? Is what Auto Rocket asked in chat. It's tough to remove the perspective that I have after playing part 2.
In that moment, I think she would.
I think she would. Yeah.
100%. Whether it's the right decision or not, I think
I do too.
With the headspace she's in, with everything just happened, the trauma she went through, she says it after and before. It can't all be for nothing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean if that's not the answer to the question,
I agree.
Think that's why Joel doesn't give that.
When you get to face that in real life, that decision, sacrifice myself for the greater good, is she going to actually push herself over the top of that?
I think so. I agree that I think the answer is yes. Yeah.
I see what the hesitation can be is.
For sure. You
can say, hey, we need to finish this role, but did you think the role was going to be you dying?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, I think that she probably always thought that was a possibility, though. I don't know. She probably always thought that was a possibility.
Character-wise, a smart girl.
For Joel to take that from her is obviously a big part of the end of the story. To Joel take that agency away from her. Again, Tim's perspective a little while ago, Fireflies suck for not doing that in the first place. Just let Ellie know what's going to happen or what should happen, but flip the coin. They can't really risk the fact that she might say no when it's the cure of the entire mankind. So that's a lot. That's the conundrum. That's the point of the game. That's not even the only ambiguous thing that we have left to argue about, because we have the real ending of the game. I know it, man. So Joel gets to the operating room. He wipes out the entire hotel. Hospital.
Hotel and
hospital. I didn't know it was a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, actually,
hotel's definitely bad. Come on.
Wipes out the whole hospital. He gets to the operating room. He takes out the doctor. He grabs Ellie. He leaves the nurses. I didn't leave the nurses. So we're watching this. I'm watching this with my wife. And
save the world. Oh, he killed the nurses too.
I'm just giving perspective. I never gave my opinion. Watch this back. So I'm watching this with Courtney. She's watching the show for the first time.
Nurses. I don't know.
So we get in that. Joel gets to the room. He kills the doctor. And I say, he didn't have to kill the doctor.
Kills the nurses.
I'm like, he didn't have to kill that doctor. I'm like, but I killed the doctor and the nurses. I did. You guys did too. Shut up. You guys did too.
Oh, 1,000%.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Pop.
Yeah, easy. They're all gone. Yeah, so in the game, you have the agency there. Like, you have to kill everybody else, just like Joel does. I mean, maybe you can sneak past some people. I don't know. You got to kill lots of people to get there. But when you finally get to that operating room, you have the doctor and the 2 nurses, hands up, doctor begging him not to interrupt this or whatever. But you don't have to kill any of them. It's all choice. You know what choice I made.
Bah.
So
when you
finished
said
the job.
hotel, at first I immediately thought of Home Alone 2. Where they're crawling up, they're like, "There's an insane guest."
Oh,
when Kevin has
Talk
as
about the second best Home Alone.
oh God, let's
Yeah,
not
'cause
even
number 1's the best, right?
sniff.
it's fine if you think number 1 is best, but whatever.
Home Alone 3 is the best.
That's a silly thing.
You know how I said 99 out of 100 people would make the decision that Joel made? 99 out of 100 people would think that's insane, JT.
Yes,
I
they
think
would.
100 out of 100 people would think that was the same.
No,
Hold on,
the
hold
one.
on. I don't think you can find 100 people that saw Home Alone 3, but
True.
let's pivot to the show we're talking about.
Yeah, let's talk about.
So yeah, Joel kills the doctor. We got another cameo. We get Laura Bailey is one of the nurses there. Laura Bailey plays a very prominent character in The Last of Us Part 2, a character that nobody even knows about yet if you haven't played that game. Cool to see her there. Cool to see Laura Bailey. Neil Druckmann has confirmed that was not anything more than a actor cameo. Like that's not supposed to be like this person's mother or that. There's nothing else there. It's just Laura Bailey giving her a chance to play a character in the show. Joel.
John, so I picked up on that. I know we talked about that the night of. I absolutely did. No lie. I was looking for her though.
That's cool.
That's why, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's her. Just from seeing her so many times over the years. She's voiced so many things in video games, so many characters. But I've watched so many behind the scenes, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Last of Us, you go on and so forth, and she's always in them. So I was like, 99% sure. Yeah, that was her. So I love that. Did Nolan North get in here and I missed it? Did we talk about it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It makes sense. I mean, I guess like it's Nolan North being in The Last of Us is almost like a cameo for him, right? Obviously, that's a pretty prolific role, but this isn't really his thing. It would have been cool, but I don't think necessary.
I figured it was happening.
Was it Neil Druckmann in it too, or something like that?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he was somewhere.
It was the person who killed Joel's daughter, I heard.
Oh, that would be dark, dude. I don't even know if he would take that on. I don't think he was. Maybe. I guess
I thought you were messing with us.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
No way.
For sure. I'm not sure about that. But
while Tim's looking that up, if anyone wants to, if you're watching this chat and you want to play a drinking game, drink anytime one of us say that we don't want to spoil anything from The Last of Us Part 2.
I think you're gonna be pretty buzzed.
Just saying.
I think you're gonna be pretty
it's
buzzed.
Craig Mazin who appears.
Okay.
Appeared in the show as the soldier in the prologue who opens fire on Joel and Sarah.
Jesus.
What?
Come on,
What a
Craig.
jerk.
Psycho.
Seriously.
You can't come back for Part 3 or Part 4.
You can't. So
No.
Joel successfully grabs Ellie from the operating room, starts to head down to the just to leave the hospital here. And he runs into Marlene. This is shot for shot from the game. Marlene is begging Joel to reconsider this. This is more than everything. Drops a little bit of like, hey, I know what the stakes here. I was best friends with her mother. Like this is a hard decision for me too. And Joel, of course, isn't having that. He ices her right at where she stands.
Pop.
And then we get that. I love that cut. Now here's one that worked better in the game. For some reason, I don't know if the pause was longer, but the cut to Joel driving in the car and just seeing Joel, because he just had that conversation with Marlene. We haven't even gotten the reveal yet that he actually did kill Marlene. That conversation between Joel and Marlene and that cut to him driving was, I actually questioned, did he have a change of heart in the game? When I first played it, I'm like, oh, is Joel going to be driving empty-handed? Like, is there a chance that Marlene convinced him? Because they cut away from that conversation quickly. They focused right on Joel, and that's the point of that cut is, like, did Joel have a change of heart? And in the game, I thought there was a chance. In the show, I don't think, and not even because I knew the answer to it, but, like, in the show, I don't think it was directed and set up as well as it was in the game.
I disagree.
Really?
I felt like it was.
I don't think anybody was thought there was a chance. Really?
Jamie thought that he might have left her.
Hey, fair enough.
So.
That's fresh perspective that I did not have. So we get there.
What do you thought, Joe? Do you feel the same way? What's someone else's take?
No, I was with John. Yeah. I didn't think.
I didn't really think much of it. I thought it was. I mean, I feel like in the game it feels much different, but I feel like they did a good job in the show. It stood
out to
me.
me.
The game.
Yeah. It stood out to me as something like Just didn't feel like it did in the show or in the game, but whatever. Not a big deal. Everything else hits. So yeah, we get that scene in the car. Joel's driving away, and Ellie is in the back seat, still fresh in her hospital gown, still knocked out with anesthesia. She rolls over. She's like, "What the hell's going on?" Joel explains. Doesn't explain, straight up lies. Says, "Hey, turns out you weren't so special. They had dozens of those kids who were immune just like you, and we're just leaving. We're just gonna head back to Jackson. Nothing to make out of that." So that's your first moral conundrum with what Joel did. Not only did he do what he did, he lies to Ellie about it. He straight up lies to her about it.
I felt that so much more in the show than the game with Pedro's performance there. Like I felt him lying.
He
like,
sold
you know
sold
I mean?
that.
Like
You can tell he wasn't proud of it either.
That's the thing. Like he's nervous to tell her this, and he's not totally sure of how he's going to word it either.
Yeah,
and he comes across as less than confident.
Right.
So I think that's meaningfully different than what we got in the game.
And it changes the dynamic of that conversation because it's like there's no way Ellie's buying this. Like there's no way. Ellie's a smart girl. There's no way she's buying this. And like you said in the game it's not that. It's pretty convincing that Joel is like, nope, there's nothing. We're getting out of here. That place was a shithole. Like that was much differently done. So I agree there. We fast forward just a little bit. They're obviously they've washed up and she's got her clothes back on. They start hiking. Joel makes a call back to the fact that they can make the hike, just like they talked about earlier. And Ellie's just something's not sitting right with her. We see it in her face, kind of like the way she was on the way up, the lead up to the Fireflies. There's just something wrong. They get to this point. This is the last shot of the game. They do it so well, just framing it in the show as well. They're right outside of Jackson, and Ellie says, "Hey, promise me everything you said about the Fireflies was true." She talks a little bit about Riley and stuff before that, but this is the real line that matters to me. It's like, promise me that you're not lying. And she just put her entire future with Joel on the line. She just put it all out there. She's like, I know, here's my interpretation. I know the answer to this question. I know that you're lying. So your answer is going to determine our future. And Joel doubles down and he says, I promise you. And we get that famous last line of the game. It's Ellie's, okay. And that's the second conversation. What does that okay mean? What does that okay mean to you?
I can't answer this.
I don't know. Is there buy-in? Is there not? Is there still okay? I want to believe you. So how many times in life do we, like, when we want to think of, maybe it was good times with someone or good times with a friend group, or we want to believe good news is happening, so we get there a little easier. I feel like there's a little bit of that with her in this performance. There's a little bit like, I think you're lying to me, but okay, I want to believe that didn't happen. So maybe,
and to
me, I think there's a lot going on there.
To me, there's a little bit of, yes, I think you're lying. Maybe I wish you weren't. Maybe I want you to not be lying. But it's also the, okay, he's willing to burden this lie for me. He was willing to do all of that for me, and he doesn't want to tell me. And I respect that. And like, this is our relationship, and he's willing to do all of this for me. So whichever way it goes, but we've got some different context from part two. I still kind of mostly felt the same after just the first playthrough.
I took it different than both of you, I think. So my thought on it is that we get a lot of time in the show where Ellie's biggest fear is being alone. I think Ellie's more afraid of being alone than she is about Joel lying to her. And she makes the conscious decision that I would rather live in ignorance and know that you're lying to me than go on being alone again. So she says, okay, I have to deal with it because I don't want to be without someone again.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's more afraid of that than she is about realizing he's confronting a lie and losing him forever.
I'm with you, Tim. I through all of that, and maybe the performances were a little too much in that sense, but she did not believe him.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
No,
she knew.
The reasoning behind why she continued. Maybe it's what Tim said, right?
Yeah.
It just said let's move on with it and call it a day, but she didn't believe it for a second.
Right. Whatever her thought process is behind after she says okay, I think it's pretty apparent that she doesn't believe him.
Oh yeah, she doesn't believe him at all.
I think you could take all three really of those points that we made there, and they're all not far off. Right. Where that's how deep this is. So I think a lot of that could almost blend. It could almost be a little of each of those, which is again what makes this so like
for sure. And that is very much that ending is very much open to interpretation. And that's why we talk about the fact that like The Last of Us was meant to end Like that they made this game in a vacuum, not knowing if they'd ever consider writing a part 2. Like that is the end of that story. Now, any story can be reopened up. Obviously, you can continue a story if you choose to, but that was originally intended to be the end of The Last of Us, and I thought that was I never wanted a part 2. Glad we got it. My favorite game of all time at this point. I'm glad we got it. They crushed it again, but at the time I'm like, we don't need the end. We don't need to know what happens. The ending, that last word, that okay, the different perspectives, the different possibilities. Like I loved that. Again, I was wrong. Part 2 is awesome, but that's how well they did with this ending.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally with you there and all that.
So yeah, that's The Last of Us.
Well, how about that? We'll wrap up here. We'll go around one more time, just closing thoughts and what we can look forward to. We got some news that season 2 will be shooting relatively soon. You know, a lot of times productions take a while, so it's not happening tomorrow. But that being said, we may get this as early as sometime in late 2024, probably 2025. Even so, that's not bad if that pans out to be.
It's not bad for video game terms, but it sucks. I want it. I want it now.
For sure, but hey, we're talking 2 years maybe. For a big production like that, I think we can get there.
Totally reasonable.
That being said, JT, why don't we go to you first here? Just closing thoughts on season 1, anything we left out, anything we missed, and then what you're looking forward to, spoiler free, of course, before season 2 or part 2, I should say.
The continued respect to the game, but creativeness when it comes to the actors and actresses. Again, not to get spoilery, but part 2 is phenomenal. And I just want that to be right there and on the screen for us. Hopefully 2024 Christmas that's my guess around then.
Be quite the gift.
But take your time. I'm all for a great story and I want to see it, and everybody else would be excited for it. But overall, I think that the season was great. It's 10 out of 10. There's nothing else you could do. It's perfect.
Take your time, get it right for sure. I can feel the momentum building and the excitement, even just from Neil talking about it online. And hey, they kind of figured out a process here, right? What works between him and Craig in the production. But we know season 2 will look much different based on what we know of the content in that second game. Tim, final closing thoughts here.
I think this is my favorite HBO show of all time. I'm not going to lie. So
Wow.
I've had a lot up there, but there's been a lot that have been... You know, I've loved some episodes. I've loved some seasons that are good, some of them are bad. And this is the first one where every episode I'm like, oh, it can't get any better. And then it gets better. And then it gets better. And then just when I was done, I was like, it's a whole thing, you know? And it's pretty big for me to say that, but I'm super excited. My second thing I'll leave you with is do not Google spoilers for part 2.
Don't be dumb.
Do it.
Just don't do it. You'll hate your life.
It's worth the payoff if you wait. I promise you.
Do not do it.
You might not be happy about it, but it'll be worth it.
Do not do it. Don't. Just don't.
It's pretty controversial though, part 2.
No, it's not.
Yeah, just
there's going to be a worldwide debate.
I
can't wait to see the world on fire.
I do not think it's going to be nearly as controversial with the TV audience as it was with the gaming audience. Not even close. I think that it's going to be like a unrecognizable landscape compared to what we dealt with when the game came out.
So I agree. I just think that the debate will
I don't know
there.
about that.
Again, not to get too spoilery, but I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, don't talk about it.
I can't wait to talk
like
about
I
it.
said, don't Google it.
You guys, I know where I'm
we need to
at,
do
what side I'm
we
on
need to do
and
like
everything,
a Last of Us Part 2 retrospective with the filter of like a hype for the Last of Us Part 2 TV show. We should do an episode just talking about, you know, what the show could look like and reflecting on that game, because like we obviously have a lot to talk about.
Spoilers at the top of the screen the entire time, but yeah.
Does that mean I got to play the game again?
Dude, I'm so down.
It's on my platinum list.
I'm playing part 1 starting next week, so
yeah,
I'm going to get back to.
Part 1 comes out on Steam PC next week, so I'm gonna for sure play it on Steam Deck.
I'm playing on my PC.
Tim, do you have that pre-ordered?
I do.
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
On my list.
So, real quick before I get John's thoughts here, speaking of HBO shows, this is a random out of left field thing. Flight of the Conchords is one of my favorite shows of all time. Check it out. It's not at all like this or Game of Thrones or anything that you would imagine we talk about on the Geekiverse. Flight of the Concords. It's amazing, hysterical,
I'll
right
do
up my alley for humor. John, Mr. Last of Us here. This show is important to all of us, but I think you are probably, I would argue, the biggest Last of Us fan I know. With it's a close running here in the four of us, but you might elevate just a little bit higher there. Talk about what this meant for you. Any closing thoughts? We know how much you've loved it and what the quality looks like week to week, but kind of hit us with your bow on season 1.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You said it all there. The story means a lot to me. It's maybe one of my favorite pieces of art of all time, whether it be the game or now the show. I'm happy they just got it right. I'm happy they adapted it so well. But I'm also happy that that's not just my perspective and me saying that as someone who played the game. I'm also happy that this is a seemingly objectively excellent show for anybody who doesn't know anything about the story. This just stands alone as an excellent story, and I was confident in that. Obviously, I played the game and I love the story. I know the story. I was just hopeful that they would be able to pull that off in a more mainstream medium, and they did, and that's so cool. The fact that The Last of Us means so much more. Just saying The Last of Us means so much more now than it did 9 weeks ago. Like, that's super cool.
Yeah, man, the hype was there from the get-go. It was awesome to see this take off, to see the viewership numbers week by week exponentially increase all the way to the finale. So good stuff ahead for this IP, no doubt about it. Happy to see another video game adaptation.
I got one last little tip that I want to throw in there.
Okay.
So the biggest thing for me of this whole, show is this is the first time my wife's understood what I play. So there's a lot of times my wife will say, "Oh, like, just thinks I'm downstairs gaming," and doesn't get why, like, I tell her when I play video games at night, it's like you watch your TV. It's very similar for me because the stuff that I'm playing has story. It challenges me and stuff like that. And this is the first time that I tell her, like, hey, like, all this stuff that you watched, I played this. Like, I lived this as this character. And I think this is the first time she, like, got it. Like, hey, I love watching this. I can understand why you love playing the game. And why you do what you do.
Perspective.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because for people that don't play the games, they just think this is like mind-numbing things where you sit down and you just game for hours and hours. It's no different than binging Netflix. And
dude,
I love the perspective of it. So,
Tim, that's an amazing point. I've long been beating that drum, where people who love different essences or elements, I should say, of pop culture. It's TV shows, it's binging Netflix, right. It's movies, but they still kind of, there's this facet that looks down on video games, which, whatever, I don't give a shit. At the same time, there's a part of me that is also like, yeah, but look what video games can do. Look at the worlds you can be a part of, you can lose yourself in, the different stories, the different genres, the different subgenres in video games. It connects us.
The agency you have over those stories, which doesn't exist in any other medium.
Right.
It doesn't, and it can still tell a meaningful story, even if you have choice and options within that world. Like, Tip, I just love that point so much, because you're right. A lot of people think it's mindless. It's not. It takes a lot more brain power in some cases to play video games than it does to necessarily sit there and watch a TV show, right?
Sure.
You've got to be on your game, so to speak. So that is a big win, I think, for what the medium can tell. Even though this was a TV show, like, people are going to be looking and have been looking at the side-by-side shots of these in the cutscenes, and they exist. And it's not drastically different. It's not influenced by The Last of Us. This show is The Last of Us. So it is. It's a huge win for so many reasons. John?
Oh, I got nothing.
Okay, cool.
Come to me. I want to say I got nothing, Duca. I'm ready.
Tim?
I got nothing.
JT?
I got nothing.
All right, we're good.
I guess I'll finish it, but I got nothing. So we'll wrap up here our chat on The Last of Us. Guys, we did it. We only missed last week, but we still got to it.
Made it up. Life happens.
We made it up. So good times here. Thanks for tuning in. If you did for these 9 weeks, we had a blast. First time we pretty much did this since Obi-Wan Kenobi last year on Disney+. If you like TV shows, if you like anything Pedro Pascal, Disney+, Star Wars, we're talking weekly on The Mandalorian, which is going on right now. And then shortly, we're going to be also doing the same with Ted Lasso on Apple TV+. Man, I love that show so much. For John, for JT, and Tim, I'm Josiah. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.